Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. Do you remember these guys?
And now the big boys are coming. At some point, investors are going to see the capital as being incinerated, right? I mean, they're just providing capital, and he has to come back to market and providing capital, and it's gone. At some point...
And you don't think there's any point where you look and is there anything encouraging where you've said, you know what, maybe they're getting finally closer to a turning point here?
I think actually it's getting worse.
They have capital raises all the time. Even the high-end cars that they build now cost more to build than they're able to sell them for. I think they're doomed. General Motors has announced 20 different electric vehicle models, and the thing about all of these is they can all be sold at a loss for environmental compliance reasons, and the losses on the electric vehicles can be recouped on the internal combustion ones, which are the ones that 95% of Americans still want. So, and Tesla has no internal combustion engine vehicles on which to recoup the EV losses. Whether they increase Model 3 production or not, they're still hemorrhaging cash at a prodigious rate, and that's not going to stop.
You had said in June that you would give up the short once Tesla begins making money, and the predictions on that aren't until what? Later this year at the earliest, but analysts probably thinking second half of 2019.
Not even later this decade.
Okay. So you don't see a turnaround in the works here?
Well, 3 years ago, Scarlett, this company was supposed to be making money now. And now it's supposed to be making money by 2020. And I'm guessing, by 2019, we'll hear about 2025. This company is structurally unprofitable.
To do with
but it's not about stock price.
What
when they run out of money,
matters for
the stock price goes to zero.
The
point is, do they make cash? Do they make money on cars produced? The answer is no. He continues to burn cash. I'm a financial analyst. I'm not an enthusiast. And for that fact, you got to look at the numbers, not the man and be an enthusiast about a man. You have to look at the numbers.
Well, here we are 5 years later, and Jim Chanos is still shorting Tesla, even though they did become profitable. And let's take a look at those numbers, Gordon, because Tesla's revenue and net income is about to shock the whole car industry. And next year, whole world. Because already next year, when looking at net income, Tesla could become the world's most profitable car company. The thing the short seller said Tesla would never be: profitable. But they will become the most profitable car company on the planet already in 2023. And Tesla will of course not stop in 2023. So Tesla's valuation of more than the top 10 of the other automakers in the world is more than justified when we look into the future potential of Tesla's profit and the numbers, Gordon. So get ready for a mind-boggling video about Tesla's potential growth in profit. And let's dive right in. So, GM sold about 5 times as many units compared to Tesla in the first half of 2022. This is a number that many people are focusing on when we are talking about GM versus Tesla. But GM sells a lot of units. Yes, ICE cars. As 98% of GM sales here in 2022, in the first half of 2022, were all ICE cars from the leader in the EV race. But remember, all of these 98% of GM sales will disappear in the future. In the not so distant future, of course, but we can all discuss when that will be. But we don't really have to discuss on the matter that they will disappear. GM thinks themselves that it will be 2035. I think it's going to be much earlier, probably not much left after 2030, even in the US. But the fact to keep in mind is that even GM knows it will happen. So GM knows that 98% of their sales they have today will disappear. So that is not the question mark. That is just a simple fact. The only question is when and can GM transition all of their old ICE car sales into EVs fast enough to stay alive and stay relevant. But what people don't seem to focus on is that even though GM had 5 times more units sold than Tesla, GM only had about twice the amount of revenue. So 5 times the units sold, but only double the revenue. And when we look all the way down to the bottom of the earnings report and look at the company's net income, well, GM made $4.59 billion in the first half of 2022, and Tesla made $5.56 billion. 5 times the units, double the revenue, but $1 billion less in net income. Yes, I think Tesla has a very good chance of beating GM here in 2022 when it comes to net income. Sure, GM will sell more units than Tesla this year, but Tesla earns a lot of money on the bottom line compared to GM. And if you look at the earnings report from GM, they explain pretty much every bad thing that is going on with the downward trend with supply chain issue, chip shortage and COVID. They really don't take any responsibility on themselves on how the company is doing. It is everybody else's fault that GM is going down. They have been going down ever since they peaked in 2016 with just over 10 million units sold. So this is not something new, just new excuses. And GM is down in the first half of 2022 once again. In the first half of 2021, GM sold about 3.5 million units, and in the first half of 2022, they sold just over 2.8 million units. They are down about 653,000 units in the first half of 2022. So if GM is able to deliver the same amount of cars in the second half of 2022 as they did in the second half of 2021, they will end up with 5.6, maybe 5.7 million units sold, because the second half of 2021 was also about 2.5 million units sold as the first half of this year. So if that's the case, that will be a drop in sales at about 45% since 2016 in only 6 years. Wow, that should probably qualify as a drop off the cliff moment. Let's say they will make about 5.7 million units. So if we say they will earn the same kind of money in the second half on their business as they did in the first half of this year, we could expect them to end up with something like $135 billion in revenue. And if they continue to have about 7% of their revenue to be net income, as we saw in the first half of this year, they will probably end the year off with about $9.45 billion in net income. So that is in the low end of what GM is guiding for. GM is guiding for between $9.6 billion to $11.2 billion in net income for 2022. So not completely off here with the back of the napkin math of $9.45 billion. But where could we find someone like Tesla by the end of this year? Well, Tesla is heading for something like 50% growth this year, so about 1.41 million units. And of course, even though Tesla's revenue mostly comes from their automotive business, they did add another 12% on top of their pure automotive revenue of $31.4 billion to $35.7 billion in the first half of 2022. So let's do something similar for the whole year, as their energy business is actually getting some momentum now, and Tesla will raise their price of the full self-driving with $3,000, which will be pure profits. And all of the smaller business that Teslas are also growing. But let's just keep it at the same level as they are today compared to the automotive side of their business. So 1.41 million cars with an average price of $55,000, as that is what it was in the first half of 2022. Quite impressive with the rise in the prices. So that is $77.55 billion in revenue only on their automotive, and then we're going to add about 10% to the automotive revenue, as Tesla had 12% more revenue in the first half of 2022. So let's keep it a bit on the low side for the entire year, so only 10%. That will leave us with a little over $85 billion in revenue. And in the first half of 2022, Tesla's net income was 15.5% of their revenue. I know this can vary a lot, but to keep it simple and just get some rough numbers to indicate where this might be heading and make sure this video don't have to be 10 hours long, let's just take 15% of the total revenue of $85 billion and we end up with $12.8 billion in net income. So in the ballpark of $12 to $13 billion is a very rough guess, where a very rough guess for GM would be between $9 and $10 billion. So GM might sell 4 times as many units this year, but Tesla will have maybe about 3 billion more, or about 35% more than GM in net income. And since Ford has minus $2.4 billion in net income in the first half of 2022, they are not really in this competition. Ford and GM will already this year be left in the dust by Tesla when it comes to bringing profits to their bottom line. That should send shockwaves through the entire car industry and some of the automotive analysts, because we don't really hear about this from the automotive analysts because they still just don't believe what they are seeing. But if that will shock them, they probably need to be hospitalized in 2023, because Tesla's 2 new factories, the Berlin and Texas, that came online this year will not really make a big contribution to the 1.4 million cars of this year, but should be able to bring some real volume in 2023. And we know Elon has said that Tesla will exit 2022 with a production capacity run rate of about 2 million. So Tesla will probably have a capacity of 2.5 million, or maybe even more, if everything goes right, which it probably won't. So 50% growth next year as well should be a nice little conservative number to go for. So that will be about 2.1 million in 2023. And that will really be a big achievement, because then they will suddenly next year already be bigger than Audi, Mercedes, and almost as big as BMW. So after 2023, I think the German automakers should really start to take in Tesla very serious. But 2.1 million units with the same kind of math we just did for 2022, well, that will give Tesla about $115 billion in automotive revenue. We're going to add 10% on top of that, and we end off with 127 billion, with a 50% going to the bottom line. Tesla could end up with something like $19 billion in net income in 2023. That will probably make Tesla the world's biggest automaker by net income. Next year, talk about Tesla speed. The first full year Tesla was ever profitable was 2020. And Tesla only made about $721 million in net income that year, and they had regulatory credits of $1.5 billion that year. So that was also what Gordon Johnson was talking about through all of 2020 and 2021. Tesla would not be profitable if it was not for regulatory credits. But it is not Tesla's fault that this system is set up. And whether you like it or not, it is a part of Tesla's business. So 2020 was the first year that Tesla was a little bit profitable, and the short sellers thought this was a one-off. But no, Tesla looks like they are heading to become the most profitable car company on the planet only 3 years later. Insane. Because Toyota had about $19 billion in net income in 2021. With the Japanese yen going down and the US dollar going up, some might look at the numbers from 2021 and say it is only $16 billion. But at the time, what Toyota made in Japanese yen was equivalent to about $19 billion in net income. So yes, Toyota might be selling 5 times as many units than Tesla in 2023, but Tesla will earn the same, if not more, than Toyota on the bottom line. Let this one sink in for a moment. This will not just shock the car industry. I think this will shock the entire world. and Tesla is only getting started, as they in 2023 would only be a little more than 10% off the way to get to their target of 20 million units produced in 2030. If Tesla is able to pull that off, and at the same time more and more people are buying the full self-driving package because it comes better and better, and more Tesla customers will be able to buy insurance from Tesla, and Tesla's energy business will be getting close to Tesla's automotive business in size, we are talking some mind-boggling numbers. Tesla's automotive net income could be something like $200 billion in 2030, meaning Tesla's automotive business could earn about twice the amount of net income than the 10 biggest automakers did in 2021. So when we look into the future, does it make sense that Tesla's valuation is higher than the 10 biggest automakers combined? Yes, it does make complete sense. Actually, they should be valued even higher, because the top 10 automakers' net income combined will only be a little bit over $100 billion, something like $110 billion it was in 2021, and Tesla will probably have $200 billion in net income. So even if Tesla does not make it and don't get to the 20 million cars, because the EV market will be saturated and everyone find their place and size in the new car market, and Tesla was only able to get to 15 million before everyone had switched to 100% EVs, well, Tesla will still probably make something like $123 billion in net income. So more than the rest of the top 10 automakers in the world. So even if Tesla missed their target of 20 million with 25%, their valuation looking long term will make total sense. And some might say they don't believe the switch to EVs will be almost over by 2030. It will take at least 15 to 20 years. Fine by me. That only give Tesla more time to grow to the 20 million in production. That will not hurt Tesla. Only give them more time to grow. The only thing I see stopping Tesla is that the others start to ramp up faster, so that we can saturate the car market with EVs by the end of this decade, so they stop Tesla from growing anymore. But I think it will be pretty much over by 2030, because this is just what the trends are telling me when I look at what's going on right now. But I can of course be wrong. But no matter what, Tesla's future looks very, very bright, and their financials look like they will be some of the best on the planet. And this was mostly looking at Tesla as a car company, and only 10% of all the other things Tesla has going on. So Tesla's revenue and profits could easily be double what we just talked about in this video in 2030. As Elon said way back in 2007.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Who is your competition?
We have no serious competition.
None.
Not presently.
And here we are 15 years later, and Tesla still has no real competition. So yeah, I think Tesla is heading for the moon, to make a little pit stop before continuing to Mars and beyond. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.